Okay, welcome everybody to Women in the Arena. I want to remind you that this talk that we're doing tonight, we are doing this based on the title is from Theodore Roosevelt's speech, Man in the Arena speech. You've probably heard this quote. If you haven't, Google it, because it talks about people who are going to dare greatly. And whenever we dare greatly, we're going to end up sometimes with our face in the sand, mud on our hands, and experience failure. But most people, their path to success is littered with failure. And tonight we're going to talk about not men in the arena, but women in the arena. And I want to welcome my guest, Monica Pierre, back to join us.
Hello, Michelle. Thank you for having me again.
And if you don't know about Monica Pierre, you can visit her website, Monica Pierre Presents. Did I get that right?
That is correct. Monica Pierre.
Sorry, MonicaPierrePresents.com. I panicked there for a minute. And Monica comes to us with a history, a rich history of journalism. She's an Emmy-award winning journalist. She is this professor, and she is a motivational speaker. And that is her new business model that she's talking about for her arena. And so we're so glad to have you. Monica and I've been friends for a long time now. We've collaborated on several things, and it's just a blessing to have you, Monica, share your story with my audience. And so I'm going to just dive right in. You were with us last week, so why don't you go ahead and get our audience up to date on what we did last week?
Well, last week, thank you, Michelle. First of all, we talked about fear, and my first motivational scene dealt with fear on trial and how we actually put fear on trial. And fear said, all I did was whisper. And fear says, you, humanity, stopped working on your dreams. So the next look at fear is not the boss of you. Oftentimes we allow fear to just just go over us and tell us that we're not worthy, we're not good enough. So in this particular motivational talk, I'm talking about fear, trying to be our boss, how we sometimes just let fear boss us around, but the time has come to stop letting fear boss us around and we take control about it. And then last time we talked about, I gave you an assignment, and the assignment was to think about all of the ways in your life you're allowing fear to boss you around.
Well, and I know that I did a little bit of my homework as well. So that's good, right, Monica?
That's excellent. A+.
And I think in some ways what happens to me is procrastination. That is one of the things, and it's not like not intentionally wanting to take action. I do take action by researching and learning and making lists and doing pros and cons. But it's kind of like one time as a post office, back in college, I drove a postal truck. I did.
I did not know that.
One time I was sitting in a parking lot and I accidentally drove over a median and literally got stuck. Like, so it's sitting there and I couldn't go forward and I couldn't go backwards, and I had to call. It was so embarrassing. I was, woman in the arena for sure that day. But that is what fear can do to us too. We try to go forward and we can't go backwards. We can't do anything. We're just stuck there. And I think that
Right.
common problem that other people might experience.
You make such a great point, because fear, when it really starts to whisper at us, it'll have us Googling things to death. You've done enough research, so
Yeah.
Google, that's enough of that. And fear will say, but just one more research, just one more coffee break, just one more talk to somebody else. Perfectionism is another way that fear really tries to boss us around. And also feelings of not being worthy, that we're not worthy of it, that people not going to understand what we're trying to do. So there are many ways that fear really tries to boss us around and whisper these things to us.
Or, not worthy, but another way is that, have you heard of that imposter syndrome, where you're worried that people are going to go, what if people find out I'm not all that, or whatever, we kind of all that anyway.
One of my earlier was when I started doing motivational speaking and I would do seminars. I said, what if 60 Minutes wanted to do a piece on me, a story on me? And they would ask you, well, are you a psychologist? Or, jump out of a plane and survive the crash. And I'm going, I'm none of these things. And I finally had to tell myself, you know what? if that Mike Wallace were to interview me and ask me what qualified me, I would just say, you know what? God told me to do it. That's all I can tell you.
That's amazing. That's
And guess what?
beautiful.
60 Minutes has never called me. So I was worried about nothing.
But you never know. The story
You
is
never
not
know.
yet, right? The story
That's
is
right. That's right.
so the homework is you're talking about are some of these things that that you instructed our audience to think about fear and become aware of it, because sometimes we don't give it enough thought, and so we just get stuck and get busy or sidetracked. But you ask us to be aware, to identify that fear and what it's doing to us. So but now that we've done that, we've done our homework, so what do we do now? We're ready to move forward.
Right. And this is a key part. The next step is the acknowledgement. So you have awareness, now acknowledgement, and just plain admit that you want something else in your life. You want to go forward with this dream. Admit that. Admit that you want something different. Admit that you want to change. Admit that you'll have to initiate a change. Admit those things and to start to move to the next level. And that can be very, very hard because we're used to fear bossing us around. We're used to fear telling us what to do. And now we're saying, okay, I admit it. I don't want fear. So we have to fire fear. Fear can't be our boss anymore. So you have to get rid of fear. Grab the box, walk fear out the door. And then you say, well, if fear is no longer the boss of me, who's the boss? And the truth
It
is,
kind of reminds me of the scripture that says, "Get behind me, Satan."
yes,
Kind of do that with
absolutely.
fear. Just get behind me. Interrupt fear.
Absolutely. We're not going to give you a 2-week notice. We're
Right.
not going to give you a severance package or a buyout. You got to go, and you have to go now. In the place, who's going to step forward in that leadership role? That is going to be you, me, individually. We're
Right.
going to have to become the boss.
That's awesome. And so tonight we want to talk about the next step. We've become aware, we've told ourselves, we've acknowledged and stated fear's getting fired and we're moving forward. So now it's time for change.
Ooh,
So what happens
that could be scary, especially when we want to step into the arena. And it's going to take, as a song that I listen to called, it's going to take us boss up and take charge, boss up and change your life. And I came up with just a little acronym, and it's a little simple one: BOSS, B for believe, O for own your thoughts, the first S for start, and then the second S, stay focused or stay faithful, but stay in the arena, even though you get knocked down quite a bit. And I want to talk a little bit about the O, which is own your thoughts. We need to own our thoughts and admit that, number one, we're thinking some fearful thoughts. And we need to change that. And people that we say are holding us back or standing in the way of what we want, it's really our thoughts. It's what we're thinking. It's what we believe to be true based upon those thoughts. It's me worried about 60 Minutes. And 60 Minutes wasn't thinking about me, that type of thing.
Isn't that typically the way it is? The thing we worry about the most is not really even a
Yeah.
reality.
Never happens. And if it does, we're able to deal with it as well. So what thoughts are you thinking? And it's one of the things I've said a long time, and it sounds a little flip. If we're thinking thoughts anyway, why not think the thoughts that get you more what you want?
Well, that is so true. And they there's another scripture that talks about, where your mind is where you're going to go. So if we aren't focusing our mind on that next step, on that goal that we want to accomplish, on that new arena that we want to step into, if we're thinking diminishing thoughts rather than thoughts of excellence or achievement, then we're more likely to just, our body language is going to be there. Our actions are going to follow those thoughts. So you're right. Owning those thoughts is just so important.
Yeah, especially when you're going to step into the arena. Remember, it's going to be something that's going to make you uncomfortable. You're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to say it's not familiar territory. And sometimes we're looking for reasons not to step into the ring.
That's
So
right.
now it's time to step into the arena. So as those thoughts happen, we need to become aware of them again and say, you know what? I'm not thinking thoughts that are going to get me where I need to be. So own them and do something about them.
And I don't know about you, but if you, do you have a way that you practice that personally? That you,
Oh,
how, to maybe tell a
because
little
it's
bit.
constant. Sometimes I have to actually pinch myself. I'm going, okay, wait a minute. No, some thoughts that I have, if I have a very successful speaking engagement or a very successful interview, and someone says, I'm going to bring you back next year. And my thought is, oh my God, can I really repeat what I just did? We might have just lucked out here today. Okay, that's so limiting. That is so ridiculous. You're worried about something that is not going to happen. You did it before. They loved you. They want you to come back. Stop trying to compare what you're doing now with what you may or may not do in the future. So I have to really, almost like the cat that falls. You ever notice a cat that fall and how it's falling, but then it
Yeah.
starts to correct itself and then it lands on its
There you
paws.
go. That's a really good visual because we do have to figure out how to get from those negative thoughts to the positive ones. And one of the things that I recently heard in a training that I was taking is envision your best self.
Mm.
And I think within that arena, where picture that person, picture how it's going to look, and I found that if I start my day that way, kind of centering where I want how, and those baby steps that I take today, I'm really starting to get that idea that the baby steps, that you were talking about earlier, and the first S here, start, those
Yes.
the baby steps that I do today are actually going to craft that future. So I got to start today. What can I do today that's going to help me get where I want to be in 3 months, 6 months,
Absolutely.
12 months?
And you talked about faith, and are you taking steps that are fear-based, or are you taking steps that are faith-based? And those are the differences. Those are, because we can do a lot of things, but if you're just worried and concerned and only doing a little bit because you're scared, that's different than saying, okay, I don't even know how to get to the next step, but I'm trusting that I will get to the next step if I do my part, and that is take the first step, and everything I need will be there for me.
I love that because it really is sometimes about faith and not the knowing the how. You know the what. And you know that you might know the how for today, but not the how for tomorrow and next week and next month.
Mm,
So to
right,
kind of live in the moment, so to speak,
right,
but with
right.
the
And
spirit of
again, we can't even
yeah.
imagine it. I mean, we have an idea, but I put out there, was praying about, we doing things with my business, speaking more, a TV show, and I get an opportunity to do something that's going to be streamed live. I didn't even imagine that. But if I did the first step, if I believed a little bit more and was willing to do a little bit more, certain things just started happening.
That's true. So I'm so excited, Monica, that you not only have been setting the stage for your own achievement in the arena, but on your personal Facebook, you are going live regularly to encourage what you have named Motivation Nation.
Yes, yes.
And
Can
so
you imagine a world full of motivated people who want to step into the arena? What we could accomplish, not only in this country, but around the world, where no one had to say, well, my dream's too big, my dream's too scary, I won't go forward with it. So a nation of people willing to step into the arena, willing to get knocked down, but back up again. We could do tremendous things on this universe.
I'm so excited that you're sharing with my audience. Fear is not the boss of you. We'll be back next week. Do you have any homework for them for next
Let's
week?
see what I will do. Oh, yes. Let's just start to jot down those thoughts that limit us. When you want to do something and the next thought is, well, no one's ever done it before. Well, I don't know if I can do it. Well, I don't have any money. Write that down and start to think about and look at the pattern that's there. Start owning those thoughts. But number one, acknowledging them, recognizing them, and jotting them down.
Awesome. Okay, so start writing them down, and we'll be back here next week again for Women in the Arena for part 3. And
Yeah.
we're so excited to have you lock arms with us so that you can also conquer fear and we can make the world a better place in the process.
Oh, Michelle, thank you so much for what you're doing, because this is important conversations that we need to have.
Thanks, Monica. Have a good evening, everybody. Good night.
Bye-bye.